Hello, listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. Today, I've got something a little different. I really want to get some outside input as we discuss this section of a story, especially with some of the difficult situations we see taking place and the challenging questions we're being presented with. The story touches on some pretty intense real-life issues, and it's definitely forced me to take a look at my own positions and viewpoints and the thought or logic process behind them. I feel like a big part of the beauty of the series and what makes it so special is that it really makes you think, and it's something you can actually grow and learn and develop from. Someone summed it up hilariously well by saying that Attack on Titan is so good, it makes the audience undergo character development. That's a perfect way of putting it, it really is. So with that in mind, while I already invite my audience to share their input, I also ended up deciding to get outside perspective in another way. For my reaction to episode 6, I'll be interviewing fellow Attack on Titan reactor and content creator, Wolf Maniac. He was a great guest to have on, came up with some fascinating theories and wonderful observations, and I really hope y'all will enjoy hearing from him. I sure did. And before I start, I want to say thanks to several other folks. First of all, the Reels Weevu and Rishin56 for first inspiring the idea of having guests on to discuss sections of the story like this. We actually had this debate over stuff from later on in the storyline, and just regarding the overall topic of warfare in real life, and also with regards to the main conflicts we're going to see in this season of the series. And even though there were definitely some very different stances between us, as I said, this season has definitely left me conflicted and uncertain, and as I searched for answers, I really do think it's beneficial to see an array of perspectives and be able to question people on the thought process behind those perspectives. And as our conversation drew to a close, a comment was actually made that this would have been a great discussion to have in podcast format, and I was like, hey, I actually do have a podcast as it happens. So that's where the seed for this was planted. So again, a big thanks to them. And the Reels Weevu has his own channel on Twitch, so I'll provide a link to that. Rishin doesn't have any videos yet, but just in case. And I'd also like to thank That's the Bruh and Red Senpai. That's the Bruh has the channel where I first met Reels and 56 and had that discussion, and then it was a multi-person conversation on Red's channel where the possibility of having Wolf on as a guest ended up coming up. So all of these folks played a key role in facilitating this ultimate outcome of being able to interview Wolf. And an extra thank you to any other folks whom I didn't specifically name but were part of this process. Which reminds me, I said their usernames before in my reaction to episode 5, but I need to add links for Super Sama and COD42. Super Sama is another reactor and streamer, and COD42 is a very talented fanfiction author who has some Star Wars and of course Attack on Titan material. And I thanked both of them in episode 5 for some help that they had provided me. Now, I probably have some of my own supplementary notes and thoughts I'll add afterwards for stuff I didn't cover in the main interview. Perks of being the podcast creator. As long as I make sure to get the stuff from the guest, I don't have to worry too much about my own side because I can always add that later. And I think I was able to accomplish that here, so I'm pretty happy. So, a quick intro here. Wolf Maniac is a fellow content creator and Attack on Titan fan. His primary thing right now is gaming content on Twitch, and he's also beginning to get into YouTube reactions as well. I'll have links in the description where you can check out his work. And let me tell you, he and the crew are a lot of fun to hang out with. A lot of times we'll just chill and watch clips and listen to music after the main part of the stream. For me, it's been a really nice way to relax after a long day of work or in between work sessions. So, without further ado, here is the first installment of the interview. All right, Wolf, welcome to the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you on. Now, before we get started on the main topic, I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of content do you mainly focus on at your YouTube channel and on Twitch?
So on our YouTube channel, we're basically starting off with reactions of the Attack on Titan series. I'm gonna get a little more uh different animes in there, but as of right now, it's just Attack on Titan. And Twitch, right now, we just basically play any and everything we can just to build up our little maniac family.
Yeah, I noticed that Call of Duty and Apex Legends seem to be some of the primary ones you're working on currently.
Yeah, right now I would have to say that Call of Duty is like one of my favorites right now, just because I grew up with playing zombies and stuff, and the way that they implemented the zombie mechanics in this game is just amazing. I love it.
Which particular edition of Call of Duty is this? You mentioned the mechanics are really good for it.
I would probably say everything's just it's like so similar but so different in the same sense. Like it's the same exact zombie feel, but this time we have different zombie types. We have health bars and a different point system, which is pretty cool.
Okay, cool. What's the name of this particular edition, though?
This is Cold War. Call of Duty Cold War.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be good for fans of Call of Duty to check out then.
Yeah.
Now, you also play against your viewers on some of your streams, don't you?
Yeah, some of them like to trash talk, so I have to just, bring them in the game for a little.
Yeah, I'm like, if you want to talk like that, we gotta see what your skills are,
Exactly.
Anyone can talk. I mean, I could start bragging about how good I am at the game, and I don't even play.
Yo, there's a couple people in the stream that constantly do that. They don't even have the game, but they'll talk trash.
Apparently, that's the game that they play.
Yeah.
Trash talk. So, are there any big goals that you have in mind for this year as a content creator?
Honestly, my goal is just to stay consistent and just keep pushing myself, because any day can be the day where I blow up. So I just got to keep it going,
Yeah, I totally feel you on that. And it's definitely a challenging thing to keep up with all this stuff. It reminds me of that joke about I can only be consistent some of the time.
Yo, for real. It's tough.
And that's definitely one of the main things I hear people who are more experienced say, that being consistent and being like reliable for your audience is like one of the most important things. Like, you can put out good quality, but then if you just disappear for months on end and then put out a little more and then are just all over the place, it's hard for people to like keep up with you and make you like a consistent part of their own lives.
Absolutely.
All right. Oh, and listeners, I'll make sure to include the links to Wolf's YouTube channel and Twitch in the description. And if you want to look it up manually, his username on Twitch is wolfmaniac_. Make sure to include the underscore, because otherwise they'll take you to other channels. All right, now, let's get into Attack on Titan.
All right.
Before we get to this specific episode, I'd like to know if you remember how you first got into the series as a whole.
I'm going to be honest with you. When it came to Attack on Titan, that was one of the animes I did not think I was ever going to touch. And it's simply because, like when you see clips of Attack on Titan, it's a little odd. Like, if you never watched it before, all you see is a bunch of giant naked people like running around and crashing into buildings, So, I don't know. Something just came over me one day and I said, what, I'll give it a try. And honestly, I've been in love with the anime ever since.
Alright guys, thanks for listening today, and I hope you've enjoyed this first part of the interview. Tune in next time for part 2. In the meantime, if you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new listeners and viewers, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. Last episode left off with Wolf sharing his experience of how he first got into Attack on Titan, his initial reservations prior to watching it, and then how things changed once he started on the series. This episode begins with my reply to that. Hope you enjoy. It's funny, that's so relatable to my own experience with it. Attack on Titan was a series that I kept seeing people like mention and refer to. Like when people put up their lists of like what their favorites are or what they think the best quality anime are, Attack on Titan is one that kept coming up, and it would be a series that they even like compare other series against to. Like it's, you know, the bar to measure up to. But I had seen it advertised on the streaming service I use, and really it just didn't look and sound that appealing to me, and like the art style that they had in the poster, I wasn't sure I'd like. And the funny thing about it is after watching the show, I found that the poster doesn't even like represent it that accurate. But I really actually avoided it for a bit. I was really reluctant to start, even though they kept like advertising it, like bringing it up in my recommended. But I finally decided to, I was also worried like about maybe the violence level and everything. And it turns out that that is at about the upper limit of what I can take. But once I finally started on it, oh my goodness, rarely does it feel this good to be so wrong. Like the first 2 episodes of the series actually had me tearing up from how amazing and how emotional it was. And just in those first 2 episodes, I was like, okay, I'm starting to see why people are so crazy about this freaking show. Like why everyone makes such a big deal about it. And oh my goodness, I had no idea at the time. I was just barely scratching the surface of how incredible that show was. So now, you know, it's one of my absolute favorite, not just anime shows, but shows, period.
They did everything very well.
Yeah. And what are the particular things, though, that, like, stood out to you about the show? I mean, like, it's an amazing thing overall, but, like, what are the specific elements, like action choreography or the music?
I would probably have to say action choreography. Like, I've never seen something like that. Like, the way that they maneuver in the air with their, I'm pretty sure.
ODM gear?
Yeah. It's crazy. Like, it's just insane to even imagine, like, a regular human moving like that to defeat something so giant. That just took me over.
Yeah, it really is it's really creative. I just love the creativity of that, and it's so, you know, aesthetically pleasing. I said it's like one part Spider-Man, one part Cirque du Soleil, but with a lot of blood and blade.
Yes.
Who are some of your favorite characters in the series?
We actually spoke about this in the stream, and I would have to probably say, and I honestly don't even have much to like back it up, but like Annie is low-key my favorite, like, non, you know, main character, you know. I just love her. She's just so chill and, like, emotionless. I don't know. She's just dope.
Yeah, she actually, in some ways, is a contrast to other characters in the series because a lot of them are, like, more openly expressive and emotional. And with Annie, both being a secret, you know, agent, basically, or undercover operative, plus just her own personality, she's a lot harder to like get a read on. Like she'll go from being like chill and relaxed, but then occasionally she starts venting. Like when she was arguing with Aaron and basically saying, you don't even get it. This whole thing is just really a sham. They take the best fighters and then stick them away where they can't even serve. So you find out that she really has some interesting things going on in that head on the rare occasions that she does speak up.
Yeah, she's very dope.
And then, of course, other times she just loses it and starts wailing on people.
Yeah,
with Reiner.
I felt a little bad for him, not gonna lie.
For real, I expected her to like hit or punch him, but I didn't expect her to go for a full-blown beatdown in, what was it, episode 3, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what are your favorite of the Titan shifters? I mean, just the Titans themselves, not necessarily the human character.
I was gonna say when I first started watching, the female definitely was my favorite just because it was just very different and unique. Like, I think it's the only like feminine built Titan, obviously since it's the female Titan, but I think as of right now, after just watching the episode that I watched, The Warhammer. I think the Warhammer.
Yeah, that's definitely a good pick. The powers it has, like being able to shape different kinds of weapons, a sword, the warhammer, a whip. I mean, that's really incredible. It's definitely different from a lot of the other powers we've seen thus far. Usually they go more for like just strict hand-to-hand combat, because obviously they don't really have Titan-sized weapons to use. So this is something really different.
Yeah, just like the whole, like, her fighting style kind of is like a... Because when it comes down to it, like, let's think of it as like an RPG game. I'm more of the person who likes to pick like archers or something with long range. And the Warhammer kind of fits that build, basically. Like, she's not really...
It does have a crossbow ability.
Yeah, exactly.
And also it just has like the regular spikes that can bring up through the ground. That's like a super useful technique to be able to use.
Definitely.
So it's really good, like both offensively and defensively to a lesser degree.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, the female Titan, well, I really just enjoy like the heavy focus on martial arts there with her, and also the attack Titan.
Yeah.
And then, but now, yeah, the Warhammer Titan, also I really love its powers, so those three would definitely, well, I think I'd probably have to pick maybe the female Titan. It's a little challenging because it seems like the female Titan and the attack Titan pretty much have similar. What was that? You mentioned the armored?
No, I was just saying, like, basically the female Titan and the fighter one is basically like the same, but just different genders.
Yeah, pretty much. As a matter of fact, I was talking to my best friend, Sapphire, after we watched the episode. And she was picking up on how much Aaron is now like using Annie's sort of fighting style and her techniques, even with the hardening skills and everything. Like when he did the wrist block and trying to protect, that weak spot on the back of his neck and different things. And she was saying she thinks that really speaks to kind of how much respect he actually has for Annie, which is a good point because they didn't highlight this as much in the main series. But in the manga and then one of the OVAs, we find out that Annie didn't just like spar or fight with him that one time. She actually made a specific effort to train him. She's essentially his martial arts coach to a little degree. And that's probably why he got, so skilled at using it. And because their two Titans are some of the most similar to each other, it makes a lot of sense that she would be a good mentor and coach for him in martial arts and how to use that in Titan form and even in human form. Because that was something he actually cared about, unlike the others who kind of slacked off because it wouldn't apply to their scores.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the female and attack Titan, and then the jaw Titan and Warhammer Titan are kind of my favorites from the group. Alright guys, thanks for listening today, and I hope you had an awesome time. Next episode of the podcast, we'll continue the interview. In the meantime, here's some questions for my audience here. Do you remember how you first got into Attack on Titan? What were your initial impressions either before or right after starting? And what are the key things that ultimately made you a fan of the series? We'll be continuing on that topic next time. In the meantime, if you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new listeners and viewers, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. This is part 3 of my interview with Wolf Maniac about Attack on Titan, Season 4, Episode 6, The Warhammer Titan. Alright, now I'm one of those people who, when you ask me, do I want the good news or the bad news, I kind of like to get the bad stuff out of the way first.
Definitely.
So I'd like to know if there are any things that bothered you about the episode or that you felt could have been handled better. like things they should have included or had more of, or things that they should have like cut or focused less on? And what are your ideas for how they could have approached it instead if they want to improve?
All right, man. I'm gonna be completely honest here. It killed me. Zofia. Oh gosh, that literally murdered my heart. Udo, I wasn't too, he was a little crazy. I wasn't, but still, like just the kids in general, like I didn't expect that, and it kind of hurt me. Like I felt as though they should have lived longer to like grow older. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally understand that, and I think I kind of saw it coming because I remembered some because I've read some of this stuff material from the manga a while back, and I looked at some of it again recently, so I kind of knew that those two were probably about to get killed off, but it still caught me off guard, like how graphically and brutally they showed it, and I think that was part of the point, though. First of all, most of us probably weren't even expecting that to happen, and second of all, just that very blunt, unflinching look at it.
Yeah.
Because you want to focus on I guess the positive parts of the attack, or the fact that we're getting to finally kick Marley's butt, which has been long overdue. But then they also force you to look at the hard realities of what our characters are doing. Even though these are characters we like, we still see the negative impacts of what they're doing as well.
Yeah.
And not just general, random civilians in the crowd. They make sure to show deaths with characters we've actually met and care about, so it's harder for us to just gloss over and ignore that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else like that?
Not really. Honestly, they've been doing very well. Like everything else it's been blowing me out of the water. Like I've been speechless. That this whole episode, I've just been completely speechless. My jaw has been down the whole time.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Like I've been basically like freaking out through like every episode this season, even having read some of the material and knowing a lot of what's gonna happen in certain sections of the story. Still definitely not the whole story yet, but certain sections. But seeing it brought to life has been absolutely incredible. It holds so much, it just thrills me, and it still keeps surprising me even though I have maybe a general idea of stuff. Mappa has done a beautiful job adapting the series, and when you finally have all the elements arranged, the music, the voice acting, the sound effects, the timing, it's just really it's an incredible experience. And I'm usually most of the times because I watch each new episode with my best friend, and I'm usually kind of cussing and wanting to like shout and yell and like fist pump the whole way through. Like I have to try to like restrain myself. And I was pretty tired when I finally got a chance to watch this episode. I was running on like less than 3 hours of sleep, so I didn't get maybe as amped up as I usually did, and I was still super amped up about it, especially when the Survey Corps appeared. When we finally had them into the scene, that was amazing. It
was dope. Oh man, I nearly cried. I was just like, just being able to see familiar faces again was just something that was amazing.
Yeah, I know we all have been waiting to finally see our team from Squad Levi show up.
Yeah.
We got to see a glimpse of Jean earlier, although we hadn't had a chance to hear his voice. And we still haven't seen Armin, I don't think, although we heard his voice because he's the narrator for the series. But we finally got to see Jean and Sasha and Connie, and of course Mikasa, and then finally Levi at the end.
Listen, I think we already seen Armin though.
Oh really? Where'd you spot him then?
If I'm not mistaken, was that not the soldier that trapped the cart titan and the jaw titan?
Oh, that guy. Oh yeah, the tall soldier.
Because remember, she said you look familiar. Where else would she have seen him other than the battlefield that when they went to Paradise Island?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
If that's Armin, then he really has gotten tall.
Yeah.
Like the smallest one in the group to like being like probably the tallest person on the team now, if that's him.
Listen, that's usually what happens too. The smallest person in the group usually ends up becoming the tallest person just because their growth spurt ends up being just crazy.
Yeah, that reminds me of Reiner. I mean, Bertold was technically taller, but Reiner went from being this little, shrimp of a little boy to being this huge, brawny guy.
Yeah.
You never would have seen that coming. Even his father didn't look that, like tall and muscular, but Reiner's like a beast. For for me, I think, and I kind of share this with my friend. I can't recall if we're going to have any further battles with the Warhammer Titan, but it would have been nice if this is all we get with it. I really, really enjoyed it, but it also would have been nice to maybe have a longer battle with it, have more of the episode dedicated to it, especially because it does have such unique and unusual powers as far as the Titan shifters go. It would have been nice if we could have more time with that.
Definitely. I would have loved to see more from the Warhammer Titan.
Yeah, I want Eren to win, but not that quickly.
Yeah, that was crazy quick.
But it does, I will say, on the other hand, that it does help show some of his progression as a fighter, especially in using the Titan form. That caught me off guard, the way he immediately punched it out before he didn't even let it finish forming. That shows a huge difference in his experience level.
Yeah, that's rare for most anime. Usually you wait till the person powers up and then they fight, but that man said, no, you're gonna get it now. So I was kind of excited to see that too.
Yeah, I often compare this series to John Wick because even though outwardly they're very different, they have certain common elements to him. And this is another little moment because instead of giving it time to get set up and attack him and then defending himself, he's I'm not having any of that. He went ahead and attacked it immediately and then he still kept kicking the heck out of it. He was I'm gonna make sure that you're dead. You're not about to do that mess where you pop up right after I try to walk away.
Yeah. That's exactly what Reiner did to Annie.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That was actually kind of a funny moment and also pretty terrifying. If you beat someone that badly and then they get up and they have a look like that.
She just had to let him choke her out because there was literally nothing she could do at that point.
Yeah, and honestly at that point, after the beatdown she gave him and just the fact that it's very hard for anyone to beat Annie, it was pretty satisfying to see someone finally get the upper hands and be able to kick her butt like Reiner did.
Yeah.
As always, thanks for listening. Now, here we go with more audience questions. Which of the 9 Titans are your favorites? Which human characters are your favorites, and what about them appeals to you? And moving on from the series to this specific episode, are there any particular things you weren't keen on? This can either be actual constructive criticism, or it can be stuff that you're not finding fault with from a technical perspective, but maybe found hard or unpleasant on an emotional level. Like what we highlighted about seeing the children's deaths. That definitely was a bitter pill to swallow. In any case, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new viewers and listeners, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. This is part 4 of my interview with Wolf Maniac, and we're about to get into some of the heavier, grittier stuff. But before that, episode 50 of the podcast. It's definitely a blessing to have been able to hit this milestone, and I definitely envision getting another 50 under my belt, will of God. I'm going to post some fun GIF and AMV material as just a little treat to celebrate. I usually include links like this in the description, but for now I'll just keep that selection of clips on the main web page at ahsokajackson.com. You have to go there if you want to check them out. Now, here we are with part 4 of the interview. Okay, now that we've talked about some of the harder stuff, what were your like favorite specific scenes or moments from the episode?
Favorite moments. It's gonna either be. It all has to do with the Survey Corp popping up. It's either when they like the cart titan. I don't want to butcher her name right now. Is it like Peck?
From what I've heard and seen, it's actually like just Peak.
Yeah, when she's talking about how she knew to that the guy was shady, and then all you see is the Survey Corp like swing above her. That right there, that movement was very pivotal for me. Like I kind of like jumped out of my seat. And then the second moment was probably when Levi showed up. Just because, Levi's he's just too swaggy. He has to make his appearance known. So it was just super hyped to see him again too.
Yeah, they did the entrance like a little bit different than I had expected. The funny thing is, I was trying to look at a different section of the manga and accidentally went into the section where Levi shows up, and I was kind of upset because I didn't want to spoil it for myself, because I was actually happy I'd forgotten some of the stuff. But then the way they actually did it here still ended up catching me off guard, and I was just really happy. It was the perfect entrance for him, like right when it looks like Aaron's about to die, Levi just casually comes in super fast and just takes out one of the most effective Titans on the enemy team, because we've seen how good Galliard is. Like in episode 1, he was like carrying them for a lot of it.
Definitely.
So Levi's like the perfect person to come in and be like, you ain't that bad. And I loved one of the things about Attack on Titan is that we see how the different characters in these different environments have these varying outlooks as a result of the environments and situations that they live in. Like, so for Galliard, he's used to operating in an environment where the power of Titans is considered like an overwhelming thing, and other nations are just now developing like the anti-Titan artillery and other things to be able to combat them. He's used to being able to dominate human fighters.
Yeah.
And so he's absolutely shocked at the fact that a bunch of human fighters are just actually going to try and take him on one-on-one. He's like, what is this? What kind of human, tries to go hand-to-hand direct combat against the Titan? And meanwhile, it's like they say in that skit, just another day for the Survey Corps.
Yeah, honestly.
I'm like, boy, this is Tuesday for us. I mean, we've spent all this time. This is what they have to do every day because of the world they're in over in Paradise, where they've had no choice but to fight against the Titans if they want to make any progress and maybe be freed eventually. So it's like, he's stunned that anyone would try this, and we're like, boy, we do this every day. We get a lot of casualties, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And sort of another example of that I thought about when I was discussing some stuff recently regarding what I mentioned with Aaron and how Annie trained him. And something he brought up during that scene in the anime is that whole training sequence with the knives and the hand-to-hand combat. He was questioning why it was even necessary. He's like, why are you training us to fight against humans? We're supposed to be fighting Titans. And when I revisited that scene recently, it was actually very striking because it shows you this completely different world that they're in, where someone who's a soldier would ask why we're being trained to fight humans. They have the military police, who deal with people, but on the whole, their military only exists to fight Titans because they're not aware of any other nation existing. And so now they're in a totally different situation where they're entering what for us would be normal warfare, where it's nation against nation.
Yeah.
And that sort of plays into, I feel like, the reaction that the team and like Mikasa have at this point when they see the civilian casualties, which is kind of a key thing I would like to discuss here. We've already seen them like during the sort of civil war or uprising sequence where they had to start fighting against other humans like Kenny and his team. they first, of course, later on they found out that Titans are just, transformed humans anyway, so they technically have been killing people already. But it was during that, like, rebellion sequence where they first started knowingly going up against people and having to, shoot and kill other humans. And I think even now for them, it's still jarring, this idea that they might, especially end up taking civilian lives incidentally as a result of what they're doing. Whereas for us, it's more of a common and more accepted thing that even though it's tragic, we're still going to have to deal with this loss of life. I figure that it's going to be pretty much impossible to ever conduct a war, even if you're defending yourself, and have like zero loss of civilian life, zero casualties and stuff. But for them, I think this is kind of, I guess, a more pivotal moment. You can see like how upset Mikasa is, especially because what Eren was doing here was a bit more digressive. A bit more aggressive and less directly defensive than other times they've had like collateral damage, like when Annie transformed in the middle of the city and he had to fight her off. There's civilian deaths then, but she is the one who initiated that specific battle. Here it's actually Eren who made the first strike in this smaller scale battle.
Yeah, that was really hard for me to deal with, because it's like you want to root for them so bad, but then it's like, are they really in the right? But then again, you can't feel bad for the Marleyans either, because they literally did this. Reiner and them literally did this to them when they were children. They had many people killed just by breaking the walls and stuff like that. So it's like, you don't know who to really side with. It's just kind of like you got to sit and watch and see who comes out on top.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. And the series as a whole definitely forces us to confront some difficult questions, like how much sacrifice is justifiable to achieve like higher goals and stuff. And they definitely want to make it difficult in this season, especially because instead of starting off with our familiar characters, we start off with the enemy side. We start off with Marley and getting to see the human side of our enemies and realizing that they're more complicated and also more sympathetic and complex than we maybe initially thought of them. They're not just these, completely straight up 100% evil monsters who just need to die, kind of how we viewed the Titans, like the mindless or pure Titans before. It's just creatures need to be destroyed. Instead, they're like, actually, they're actually good people over here. And even people who have done bad things but had understandable reasons for it, like what the children are subjected to and all the brainwashing and stuff, you start to understand why they behaved the way they did. Alright guys, thanks for listening today, and I hope you had an awesome time. If you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new listeners and viewers, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. Time for part 5 of the interview. This is a little shorter than the others, but I felt that the theory Wolf reveals at the end of the excerpt made for a great ending point, and we'll be picking right back up in the next episode. And just with the warfare as a whole against Marley, you can definitely say that it's like justified and even overdue for Paradis to finally strike back, because, like you said, there's the initial attack from Reiner and his team, and then that went on for several years with the undercover operation and some additional attacks, right? And then after that 5-year period, they spent the next 4 years sending over 30 ships to Paradis, and Paradis had to defend itself against that. And even before then, they spent like years, it looks like decades, transforming their own Eldians from Marley, which that itself was obviously very unjust and really messed up. And using them to basically keep the people in Paradis like walled in and trapped there. So they've actually been behaving aggressively against Paradis for years, and right now they're just about to renew the war effort and rally all these other nations against them. So in general, the strike was definitely justified and even overdue. But then you have Eren destroying this whole building of civilians who are not really involved in this, and you see like this carnage that he's causing on the side.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's kind of like, call me a conspiracy theorist or whatnot, but it kind of like makes me think like, did Willie was this all planned? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's deeper ties and deeper meanings into everything that's being done right now, especially with what Eren himself is doing and what Eren himself is becoming, like how he's basically becoming the world's target.
Yeah, we did have that sequence at the beginning of this episode where we... Now, as a quick note, the way they adapt the anime, they sometimes, they don't necessarily do things in exactly the same, or show things in exactly the same order as the manga.
Yeah.
So when I was trying to read the manga material for episode 5, I actually ended up coming across that conversation between Willie Tybur and General Magath, where we find out that Willie actually did orchestrate. He wanted these military targets to be wiped out and government officials, and he also wanted to maximize civilian casualties. Basically, so to help turn the world against Paradis and ensure that even if the verbal persuasion wouldn't work, he knew that having all these government representatives and everything die in the attack, plus all these civilian deaths, would help convince them and turn the world against Paradis. He's like, see, I told you these were monsters. Look at these atrocities they're committing.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, who won here? Because on the one hand, this really was a good attack strategically. People have said that fans sometimes underestimate this, but Eren and his team are busy taking out the military leadership of Marley, governments, high-up government officials, and also ones from these other nations that are about to join the attack against Paradis. Plus they also have the Titan shifters there that they're fighting, the Jaw Titan and the Card Titan and the others. So actually, this is an amazing opportunity that they're taking advantage of. Tactically, it's super good. But on the other hand, we find out that this kind of is a setup designed to make them look terrible and guarantee that there's no chance for peace, and guarantee that the rest of the world is going to be ready and willing to go ahead and completely annihilate the nation of Paradis. So I'm like, who really wins here? And it's like who fell into whose trap in this situation?
That's what I mean. Like, I want to understand the bigger picture, the bigger plan, because just even Magath, he stated that like it would be pretty obvious what the results of this attack would be. So what is their real goal? You know what I mean? What are they really after right now? That's what I want to figure out.
Yeah, it's like right now the only clear thing that I'm seeing from Willie is that he actually has so much hatred for his own people. He's like totally bought. It's like he's drunk all the Kool-Aid, not even just a gallon, like a whole pool full of it. And that's actually one thing that anime did even better than the manga, showing how kind of frenzied and crazy he is about this. He's actually really sold on this idea that the Eldians are devils and they need to be wiped out. He actually said that in his speech in episode 5 when he talked about he cursed the blood he was born with and that no one wanted to see the Eldians destroyed more than he did. It's like, this guy is complete. Even Magath looked a little shocked looking at this guy like, this dude is crazy. It's like, And it's funny because at the beginning of episode 6, they start off with showing him with his family and trying to humanize him. But I'm like, I'd already read that conversation in the manga before,
Yeah.
between him and Magath. I'm like, you can buzz right off with trying to make us feel the least bit bad for this guy. Maybe I feel slightly bad for his family, but him, he can go jump off a lake into a pool of fire.
Yeah.
I mean, jump off a cliff into a pool of fire.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like there's another side to him. Like I feel, just like how he says what he says, but then when Eren first popped out, how he said that he didn't want to die. So I feel like the words that he speaks around people and to anyone who isn't like really an Eldian are not as truthful as he makes it seem. I feel like I don't know. I feel like there's a connection between him and Eren. Like they had some kind of conversation or something where they want to unify the world, or maybe somehow by making Eren the main villain, the main bad guy.
Alright guys, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new viewers and listeners, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello, listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. Gonna skip the outro today for the sake of time, so let me say in advance, be blessed, stay salty, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Okay, now, when I heard Wolf's theory in the last segment that Eren Yeager and Willie Tybur might be collaborating, you know I had to follow up on that. I'm super glad he shared that with us, and I think it's one of my favorite things from the interview. I was really impressed by it, by his ability to notice and analyze different things so quickly and thoroughly, and it was also really neat that he had a specific angle that I'd never heard anyone express before. Honestly, even if he turns out to be wrong, what he came up with is pretty solid, and I have a feeling he'll end up getting plenty right as he continues watching the season and formulating theories as the storyline progresses. This man is definitely on his game right now. Now, that is a really interesting theory. I've heard other fans kind of express a little bit of a similar, like, basic theory. This idea that maybe the point of all of this is to give the world a common enemy to... I mean, well, Willie was already trying to do that, but he was basically trying to unite the whole world against Eldia. Apparently, the way to have world peace and understanding is to all collectively commit genocide against one group. Then we'll all be friends and forget all the stuff Marley has done to us.
That's crazy.
But what you're saying is actually this is the first time I've heard this particular spin on it. The idea that maybe Eren and Willie are actually collaborating. Now that's a super interesting theory. Now what do you think Eren's motives would be here? Because as far as we know, he wants to like protect and save his people. Like he's always fought like for their freedom and everything. So what would he have to gain in terms of currently all we see is that he's going to unite the world, help unite the world against Eldia and make sure that they're wiped out. So what do you think his true motives would actually be here?
So what I'm seeing is basically, so I think Eren's only like true problem with any of the Titans would be the Warhammer and the Beast Titan. So by getting the Warhammer out the way, and I don't know what they're going to do with the Beast Titan, but allowing the other Eldians to still occupy those Titans. And when I mean like make Eren the main villain, like I mean really make him the main villain to the point where they're like, not Eldians are devils, but Eren's a devil. Just like how the guy said on the Survey Corp, like, we need Eren. He's the devil that we need. So he's basically going to be the main target to the point where they're like, you know, all right, let's get all the aliens, let's all group up, we can all take this man down because somebody has to kill this man. That's how I feel that it's going to be done, basically, so that he's basically going to be the glue that pieces everyone together, basically.
Okay, now I see what you're saying. Basically, your theory is that he's going to try to make himself individually become the target, to where people don't even focus on his whole either nation or his whole ethnic group, and don't just try to blame all the Eldians or even just all the Eldians on Paradis, but instead just target him specifically.
Yep.
And that by making sure that the other Eldians still have control of the Titan powers, and their help is still going to be needed to fight him, he's basically putting the world in a situation where they're forced to have the help and the aid of the Eldians in order to defeat Eren. So they can't just see them as enemies, they have to link up with them as allies and see that these people are trying to help us. They're trying to help, defeat Eren. They're our allies in this. They're helping to save us.
Exactly.
That's a really good theory, and I love that the unique spin you're bringing to it. Because, like I said, I've never heard, I don't think anyone suggest that those two particular characters, Willie Tybur and Eren Yeager, may actually be collaborating and maybe planning this all out. That's great. Also, I wanted to mention, just about this whole catch-22 that Paradis seems to be in. It's like they want to unite Willie wanted to unite the world against them, and so by doing this strike and taking the bait, basically, they are helping to, make sure that happens. But then, on the other hand, I don't really see another option, because Willie was already busy convincing the world, and we have this really key moment before the attack where Willie finally reveals what his intentions are, and you hear the crowd roar in response and applaud and basically let him know that they're going to support him in this attack and this attempt at genocide.
Yeah.
And we see Eren's reaction at that moment, where he's finally resigned himself to how things are going to go. He just sort of closes his eyes and just kind of looks a little sad, a little exasperated, and just finally there it is.
Yeah.
But it's what other choice did they have? Because this is a really good strategic moment for them to finally be able to strike back in self-defense against Marley and the other nations. So it's and the thing is, it's everyone had already been convinced to turn on them anyway, so even if they held off and didn't attack, it's not like peace was likely. The other nations probably just would have proceeded to attack them as planned, and Paradis would have lost the advantage of being able to take out all these military and government officials at once. So even if it's a trap, it's a trap they kind of needed to spring, because it was too good. They're in a very desperate situation, and it was too good an opportunity to pass up.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a classic Attack on Titan thing. It's everything is messed up, and all the wins are difficult, and they always come with huge losses, and even when you win, you still kind of lose. So.
Yeah, it's very realistic, though. That's honestly how life is.
That's so true, and that's one of the core things about this series, how brutally honest and accurate to real life it is. Whether it's dealing with the racism, the brainwashing, these complicated dynamics. Even we find out the fact that Reiner's father is actually Marleyan, which is something I never saw coming.
Yeah.
But then we find out that his father, despite the fact that he, like I said, and like other people said, apparently her being an Eldian didn't stop you from banging her, did it?
Yeah.
But no, even he...
I was so confused. I was so confused. Bruh, you knew exactly what she was, man. And, you couldn't just be a man and own up and, at least give your son a little bit of love, But you're too worried about yourself at the moment. So that just kind of pissed me off. I was like, man, you should have just killed him right there. Beast Titan on his ass. I mean, Armor Titan, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. It's but again, that's super realistic from real life. People will be racist as heck, but will still perfectly willing to sleep with people of the race or ethnic group that they hate. It's oh, these are evil devils, and they'll even like dehumanize them, talk about them like they're animals or like they're less than human. Yet apparently that never gets in the way of anyone's sex drive. It's like, okay, well, if they're subhuman, what does that make you for sleeping with them? It's like just go somewhere with that mess.
Yeah.
But again, it's very realistic. That's the sad thing about it. It's sadly, painfully accurate.
Yeah.
And I think something that we really see in this season especially is like the core reality of warfare, which is it's never going to be, even if it's justified like morally or ethically, it's always going to be a painful and tragic thing to have that sort of loss of life. And there's pretty much always going to be collateral damage in some shape or form. Even if you're on the side that's like morally justified, you're going to lose people on your own team that have like, they have their lives, and they also have maybe children or parents or spouses or family members who are all going to suffer. And even on the other side, even if you kill an enemy soldier and that's justified, they probably still have a family and children, who are going to, or other relatives who are going to miss them. That doesn't mean that what you did was wrong, but you have to respect the fact that it's inherently warfare is inherently a painful and tragic thing, and something to be avoided because of pain and suffering that it causes. It should always be a last resort. And it's like, by the time you get to the point of warfare, you've already thoroughly effed up in some way for it to get that desperate. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. I've said this before, but you really can come across some gems in foraging through comments on YouTube, Reddit, and other sites. The spoiler risk tends to be really high, but it can also really pay off. In this section of the interview with Wolfmaniac, you'll primarily hear me speaking, as I wanted to pass on what I had learned in reading some other folks' explanations and then searching things up myself. This was a particular issue that had honestly left a bit of a sick feeling in my stomach, so even though there's still plenty to consider, it was a really big deal for me to be able to find what I did. And something directly related to that, which will be discussed in the segment next episode, is the specific question of the destruction of the apartment complex and why Aaron had set up there in the first place. With that said, I hope you'll enjoy today's segment of the interview.
Warfare is a very, very complex thing where, like, kudos to you for even making it out of this alive, especially if we're gonna involve things as titans. Like, that is such a unpredictable factor. Well, I mean, it's not that unpredictable since they know the science of it all now, but it's just crazy.
Yeah, for real, it really is. I mean, the circumstances they're having to deal with are even more extreme than our regular warfare. Like, they're busy taking civilians and turning them into titans, in addition to like the titan shifters we have. I mean, it's just, and imagine what it would be like in real life to look at a scene like that, like what we saw happen in the attack on Liberia. You step outside your house and you see this massive, 40 or 50 foot creature busy just rampaging through the city like Godzilla.
Listen, I'm about to step back inside my house because I don't know what to do at that point. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, you better hope you have a basement or something.
Yeah, for real.
And that may not even be good enough.
No.
Something interesting. I saw this really interesting comment made on Reddit regarding this discussion of warfare and specifically war crimes, because that's kind of, I guess, one of the key debates and arguments for this season, whether different actions were in general justifiable, and also whether they would be considered like war crimes or violations of the laws and principles of warfare. And they were actually saying that despite how bad it looks with the civilian lives, and specifically like the deaths of those people in the apartment Aaron destroyed, they said that what he did probably would not be considered a war crime because basically the tactical advantage of what they did, the tactical benefit of being able to take out the government and military officials and everything, basically the benefit gained from it kind of outweighed the price of the civilian casualties. And like one of the key concepts is whether your actions will help basically make progress in the war and move towards basically ending the conflict.
Yeah.
And they were saying that making such a critical strike against them would probably be considered to justify the incidental civilian deaths. And so I started looking into that and looking it up. And obviously I definitely have more reading to do in regards to this. But I was able to find like a database where it talked about international different laws that nations have regarding warfare and regarding civilian casualties. And it's like two key things that, and someone else also kind of wrote a post talking about this in regards to Attack on Titan and the strike on Liberia. And it seems like there's two like key principles at play here. One is that a huge distinction is made between an attack that's directed or focused at civilians versus an attack where civilians end up dying incidentally as collateral damage but were not the intended targets. That's sort of like what you see terrorists do. I'm a little hesitant to even use that word because I know YouTube like flags words, but maybe I should come up with a nickname for them. But I'm like
Terry's.
Terry, actually that'll work. Terry's. Like what I see them engaging in, like it seems like markets, especially in certain countries, like markets or grocery stores or business districts, seem to be popular targets for them, and that's a very definite and deliberate targeting of random innocent people, random civilians. They're just trying to go about their day, buy food for their families and stuff, and you're deliberately massacring and slaughtering them just to. And that's also part of like the definition of terrorism. It's kind of a psychological warfare. It's about kind of being able to manipulate and influence people and get your way through these attacks and basically kind of trying to control and influence and stuff, but via targeting like civilian populations and everything. That's very different than an attack on a legitimate military target, but civilians end up getting caught up in the process.
Definitely.
And like the other key principle when it comes to civilian deaths is that the damage to civilian property and the loss of civilian life has to be proportional to the concrete and direct military benefits obtained in the attack or in the strike. In other words, what you accomplish in terms of military progress has to be enough to justify however much civilian death there is.
Yeah.
And the strike that Aaron made against Marley, and we actually specifically see him targeting like even the area they were seated in, which Willie kind of arranged for. He actually told Malgoth to go ahead and seat everyone together and clump them together and make them an easier target. And so that definitely, I would have to say, the issue of law, things can be justified by law, but still not necessarily be morally or ethically right. So I don't just lean on that. And so I still have I still can't make up my mind in terms of how I personally feel about it. But it looks like from kind of an accepted legal standpoint and internationally in real life, that with how effective and how tactical that move was, it probably would be considered justified and not a war crime. So even though I'm still very conflicted on it, that at least does make me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Alrighty folks, thank you for listening and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm especially curious if any of you have particular input you'd like to provide regarding today's subject. Anyways, if you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new listeners and viewers, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Be blessed and stay salty. Hello, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. Continuing the topic of civilian casualties and collateral damage, I share my theory regarding Aaron's choice to set up in the apartment complex. I also note Marley's role in all of this, while Wolf counters with some excellent points about Aaron specifically and the series as a whole. And we end up discussing some of the things we love about both anime as a whole and Attack on Titan specifically. And one thing I finally figured out, because one thing I hadn't understood for the longest time was, especially now that we have this whole speech from Aaron where he talks about finally understanding his enemy and realizing that not everyone in Marley is a monster. There's plenty of good people over there. And also people were brainwashed and lied to about parties, so they genuinely don't know better. I'm like, he makes that whole speech, and then the first thing he does in the attack is destroy a whole building full of civilians. I'm like, are you kidding me? But I think I finally figured out why he did that. The whole event was full of VIPs, and we see a little bit of the security, but you can reasonably guess that they probably had security screenings and are probably trying to make sure the event probably was not open to the public, and especially not Eldians, who they already hate and already have under extra scrutiny and surveillance.
Yeah.
So my theory is that Aaron set up in that building, in that basement, because it was the closest place he could get to the actual stage and to the crowd without being spotted or found out, and without having to either go through security screening or have to find someone to give him a fake, security clearance for it. So even though he had to kill the civilians in the process, I think he basically set up there because it was basically out of necessity, and it was the closest he could safely get in order to wait for the moment to strike and attack, and also have his conversation with Reiner there.
Yeah, definitely.
So while I'm still conflicted about it, I finally understand it, and I can be more forgiving about it. And especially now that I also know that Willie deliberately set up to maximize civilian casualties. Now, if Aaron also was part of that, I'm gonna have to kick his butt again. But knowing that Marley's side deliberately tried to maximize civilian casualties, I really don't think that's what Aaron and his team wanted. Although I guess it is, if your theory is right and he and Willie were working together. But right now I'm operating on the theory that this wasn't what the team from Paradise wanted or what Aaron personally wanted. And knowing that it's actually the other side that set it up, that puts even more of the responsibility on Marley's side rather than on Aaron and his team.
Yeah. I feel as though, I definitely feel as though his team doesn't want that, because you see how Mikasa reacted when she seen what Aaron did. But I do feel as though they're still, Aaron himself, just because, Aaron, he likes to take all the responsibility. He likes to go headfirst charging in. Well, that's how he was. We have yet to see if, his personality changed in that manner. But I definitely believe, they would take I don't know, I feel like putting all the responsibility on Marleyans would be a little more optimistic than the show really is to, situations such as this. So
yeah, that's very accurate, what you're saying about the series, how they usually don't give us easy, clear-cut answers or make it super easy to just blindly root for our heroes or anything. They usually kind of force us to look at some ugly truths and realities and really kind of look at both the characters and also ourselves. Yeah. And that's one thing I'm already experiencing with this season. The idea of collateral damage and civilian loss of life is something that for years has been kind of a sore spot for me. And partly because a lot of times I feel the military actions themselves were unjust. So any extra loss of civilian life already carries like heavier negative moral weight. Like if what you're doing is already unjust, then you're extra responsible for any additional deaths, right?
Yeah.
But this series is forcing me to kind of look at my own principles, and I feel, conflicted. It's hard for me to even come up with sure answers about whether what they did here was. I keep going back and forth, and that's the great thing about it.
Yeah.
They force you to ask questions and scrutinize, like I said, not only the other characters, but also yourself. You have to check your own perspectives, and I'm busy kind of having my perspectives sort of fine-tuned, and I'm trying to be like open and be willing kind of to learn and to revisit my own, obviously I don't want to just abandon, and I think this is also part of the struggle. Are you just going to abandon your own ethics or principles just for the benefit of the side that you like or you're rooting for, or just because this is a character that I like, so I'm going to bend over backwards to justify things that normally I would condemn if it was anyone else conducting it or behaving in that way?
Yeah, I definitely feel that.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about the series itself. It's something that you can actually... It's not just entertainment, even though pure entertainment does have its own value, and shows that are purely entertaining still have value for that reason. And Attack on Titan still has that, like the aesthetics of the warfare, the amazing, combat and action choreography. That's something you can enjoy purely from an entertainment perspective.
Yeah.
But I feel that the show also is something that you can really learn from and maybe grow and develop as a person from.
Yeah, that's like, I feel as though for anybody out there who's like on the fence about like starting to watch anime or stuff like that just because of like what you've seen or heard about anime, I promise you anime will probably be the greatest, like watching anime will probably be the greatest decision you ever make, because there's so many life lessons and things that you get taught like kind of like subliminally that you don't usually get on like regular television shows. Like I don't know how to say it. It's just a great thing to really sit there and pick apart how deep and in depth these animated shows really are, and how much these artists and designers and directors and all that stuff, how they like truly think and feel.
Yeah, for real. And especially Attack on Titan, it's a story that has this crazy amount of detail put into it in terms of symbolism, in terms of foreshadowing. It incorporates mythological elements from various different cultures. Like I've seen reference to Greek mythology, Norse mythology. It just incorporates... I mean, it's amazing. I'm still only just scratching the surface of what all was built in this series. I don't know. I know it's not just Hajime Isayama, the creator. He also has like a larger team working with him, especially like for the anime and everything. But it's like, how do you people come up with all of these ideas?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Alright folks, thank you for listening, and I hope you had a great time. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new listeners and viewers, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. Last episode ended with a discussion of the substance and quality of Attack on Titan, and how it goes beyond solely surface-level entertainment This episode resumes in the middle of that same thread or path. Like, you remember something I spoke on my podcast before. You remember how there's this running theme of Bertolt's and how he has these like weird sleeping positions he gets into?
Yeah.
And, you know, it starts off as like a humorous thing. It's just like a running gag. And then we find out that there's actually a darker meaning to it. He's having like nightmares about this guy who hung himself, this guy whose story he and Reiner actually stole to help in their like undercover work.
Yeah.
And then I actually saw these comments, and this kind of blew my mind a little, but this season, in episode, was it 3? I think 3 is the one where we get a lot of Reiner's backstory.
Yeah.
The position that they show Bertolt sleeping in that episode actually matches a tarot card called the Hanging Man.
Wow.
And not only that, but when you look at the supposed like meanings or interpretations for the Hanging Man, in both upright and reversed positions, like the tarot card, just about all the definitions relate to the storyline for Reiner and his team. Like, it talks about, like, some of the key themes are betrayal, self-sacrifice, indecision, and things like that. Almost everything, like, applies to his team really, really accurately.
Yeah.
So that's just like one example of the crazy like level of detail and symbolism built into this. And the series even has like scriptural and biblical symbolism, like the fact that there is a special tie between, like the fact that there is this relationship between Aaron and Levi. And in the Bible we have Aaron, the chief priest, Aaron, who's Moses' brother or half-brother, and his tribe, the tribe chosen for the priesthood, is the Levites.
Yeah.
And he's like the head of the Levite tribe. And we have this concept of the Ackermans being like a special clan or family in the series.
Yeah.
And even Aaron's name, Aaron Yeager. Aaron is like the Turkish form of the Hebrew name Aaron. But in Turkish meaning, it can mean like a saint or like a divine, from what I've looked up, kind of like a divine or holy person. And then Jaeger is German, which is kind of why it's part of my headcanon, and I kind of think of Aaron as being like part European, part Mediterranean. And that's actually what it looks, just if you look at their like physical traits and stuff, it kind of looks like the people within the walls are like a blend of European and Mediterranean and like Eastern heritage.
Yeah.
Just not Far Eastern. Like Far East people, like Mikasa's mother, are very rare.
Yeah.
It's established. But his last name means hunter. And so his like full name could be seen as meaning like divinely elevated or guided hunter, or like saint hunter.
Yeah.
You could interpret that 2 different ways. It could either be that he's like the divinely chosen hunter, or that he's a hunter of saints.
Yeah.
People have talked about it. You can interpret that either way. And something I think I saw someone mention that the Japanese school system actually incorporates certain elements of like philosophy. I think like general philosophy, but also maybe like moral or ethical stuff. It's like a regular part of its school system.
Yeah.
I wish I could find what exactly they said, but if what they said is accurate, then it kind of gives you a different perspective on Japanese writers as a whole, and why you see their material so much like an anime and manga delve into these like deeper like questions of warfare, of like, you know, morality, of just how we live our lives, different questions like that may be actually partly a cultural thing, why it's so like reflective and why they take the entertainment to that level.
That's actually dope. I never even knew that they take those in their education system.
Yeah, like I said, I can't say for sure. I'm gonna have to look this up to like confirm it, but I remember seeing something about that, so that's something I would like to look into. And that could definitely explain a lot. Okay, so Okay, something I want to ask are, first of all, we'll start with like smaller scale stuff. What are you hoping to see in the next few episodes? Like, what are you looking forward to, and like hoping we'll get a chance to see?
All right, so next few episodes, I definitely have to see Eren swallow the Warhammer Titan. I want to see if because technically, doesn't he have 2 Titans already?
Yeah, he has the Attack Titan and the Founding Titan, which we haven't really seen much of. He doesn't really seem to have unlocked most of its powers yet, so he mainly uses the Attack Titan powers.
So that makes me wonder. I just want to see if like maybe adding another Titan may like add to that piece of the puzzle that ends up allowing him to, I don't know, maybe use more of his Titan powers. I don't know, but I want to see that. I want to see where Falco is. I'm worried about Falco. So I want to see how he's gonna play a part into this. Yeah, I don't know. I feel as though they might try to make him the main protagonist. They might try to make him go up against Eren somehow, some way, some shape or form.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like Falco, in some ways, is, and you can kind of tell that even Eren was picking up on this, but Falco, in some ways, is like a young Eren, like this determination. Like he wants to be able to help and protect, be the one to protect Gabby, which is sort of, that was something that actually caused like the friction that we saw between Eren and Mikasa early in the series. She was always having to help or trying to help and protect him, and one of the reasons he resented that was he wanted to be the one to be able to help and protect her, especially after failing to have helped his mother and then other people in his life. It really kind of grates on him to be the one to be protected instead of being able to help other people. Actually, that reminds me, I forgot to mention this, but you made an excellent point on something I hadn't really thought about, which is just that you're talking about Eren versus the rest of the Survey Corps.
Mm-hmm.
You said that it's Eren's personality and kind of his pattern to try to take on things by himself, like take on responsibilities, and that he may be doing that again in this season, especially if he's collaborating with Willie or other people on Marley's side with like this larger plan.
Yeah.
That he may be willing to accept responsibilities like civilian casualties and everything, and he may be trying to take all the moral and ethical burden on himself too, so they can kind of keep their hands more clean. It actually reminds me of a concept I love. There's this really good exchange from the movie The Bourne Legacy, where this guy talks about this concept of people he calls sin eaters.
Mm-hmm.
He's basically saying that's the role that the undercover agents, like for Treadstone and other military workers, play. That they're the ones who take on all the morally questionable or downright, wrong or objectionable stuff, so that other people have the luxury of keeping their hands clean.
Yeah.
Although I will say that the people in the government who are like that, they may be trying to keep their hands clean, but if they're the ones who set up and arranged all this stuff, I'm not buying it. Like, that doesn't work on me. It's like, I didn't kill you myself, I just sent an assassin after you.
Yeah.
Nah, you still get to die.
Yeah.
But that's a great, excellent point you made, though, about Eren's personality and how it may be driving what he's trying to do this season.
Yeah.
Alright guys, thanks for listening today, and I hope you had a great time. If you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new viewers and listeners, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello listeners, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. Wolf suggested earlier that Falco Grice may be on the path to essentially becoming the new protagonist of the series, and that brought to mind for me some really fascinating insights from a fellow fan, so that's where this installment of the interview starts off. But going back to what you mentioned about Falco, people have someone made this amazing comment pointing out how Falco and Falco and Gabby, in terms of character design, like she has the reddish brown hair, which I noticed is actually similar to Aaron's hair color, actually.
Mm.
And Falco has the green eyes. They're explaining that, I think they said like in design principles or color theory, red and green are considered like complementary colors.
Yeah.
And so it's like Falco and Gabby have been given somewhat complementary designs because he has like the light green. His eyes are like a lighter green than Aaron's, but he has like green eyes. And when they pointed this out, something I realized is that it's like Falco and Gabby each represent like kind of the opposing basic sides of like Aaron's nature. Falco is the gentler, more empathetic one who wants peace and wants to protect others and kind of has the kinder side of Aaron's nature. Because one thing people miss out, and I've brought this up multiple times on my podcast, but I know I need to repeat this. Aaron actually has a very empathetic and compassionate side despite all the aggression and anger. And actually, there's kind of a beautiful but also tragic irony where it's the aggression itself that motivates it's the compassion itself that motivates the aggression. It self-infuriates him because he hates to see other people victimized. He hates to see them suffer. So a lot of times the rage is driven by his anger at the suffering and the injustice and stuff. That's a big part of why he's so aggressive. Yeah. And sometimes you see the kind of emotion side of that breaking through where you see he's actually very pained when he sees other people suffering. So he's not like a psychopath or sociopath. He's actually very much the opposite. But then, while Falco represents kind of the lighter and kinder side of him, Gabby represents, the angry, aggressive Aaron, the one who wants to fight, the one who's trying to aggressively, free her people. Yeah. And that's something that this season helped me understand at the very beginning. I'm sure like a lot of people, I take a very dim view of Marley and also of the Eldians within Marley. I just thought that they were traitors, kind of like how we have how there are people during the World War in the Jewish community who basically sided with the Germans, sided with the Nazis, and are willing to like betray their own people. Yeah. And there still are people like kind of like that that we see. But we also see that a lot of the people were just genuinely brainwashed. And like with Gabby, she genuinely believes that the people on Paradise Island are evil. And that if she can take them out on behalf of Marley, that'll actually free and like improve the lives of the Eldians within Marley. So she actually has some very genuine good motives, even if her perspective is totally messed up. Yeah. And she's just been given bad information. When I first read that chapter in the manga, I was stunned by like how in just one chapter, Isayama managed to shift my whole mindset, like turn on my head all these negative thoughts and views I had about the Eldians and Marley, how I just saw them as traitors, which that's a sore spot for me, like betrayal and backstabbing. Yeah. I was like, oh my goodness. In just one chapter, he totally like flipped me on my head.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's like, it sucks because like when you like, I did not expect this at all. Like seeing Reiner again, I'm like, oh wow, look at that traitor, that guy. And then seeing how he like describes his time, like he's basically lying to himself. And like Gabby and I think the aunt picks up on it, like, whoa, you're not making them seem like they're completely evil, disgusting creatures. Like, what are you doing? And it's like, yo, like I feel for him. Like it's something he felt like he needed to do, especially since he was actually gifted a Titan power. So if he didn't go through with the plan, he was gonna die as soon as he got back.
Yeah, for real. And actually, people have different theories about that conversation at the dinner table. Some people do think it was basically him kind of grasping for straws and trying to convince himself that what he did was right, or, like by finding like the tiniest things that he could say about them to make them sound bad. But I'm actually on a different side. I think what he did, because remember, the Eldians are under surveillance, and you could get in huge trouble if you ever openly contradicted what Marley says about them. Plus, the aliens themselves are brainwashed and they, believe this stuff. So if you try to openly argue with them, they'd probably push back very hard, and they might even report you or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think what he was doing in that conversation was actually deliberately humanizing them and making the point that they're not these mindless, evil monsters that people think. One thing people point out, Reiner is a soldier. He's seen actual violence and he's been through the trauma of war. And this tiny little minor stuff he talked about, and his family, is aware that he's a soldier and has been through a lot. He talked about minor stuff that shouldn't even register with him. And he also did not talk about any of the violence he had seen or experienced over there. If he genuinely wanted to make them sound bad, he could have talked about them, especially Eren. Eren's crazy, aggressive. Yeah. I'm going to slaughter every last one of you. So actually, I think what he was doing in a sneaky way was basically being sarcastic and making the point that these aren't monsters. These are just ordinary, annoying people. He was sort of busting their balls like he did with their friends. And his biggest, most horrific example is not all the violence, not the civil uprising, not nearly getting decapitated. He still has PTSD nightmares of Mikasa.
Yeah.
But he doesn't talk about that. He says his big, horrific war tale is this one time there was a potato.
Yeah.
She potato. So I really think that he was doing it on purpose to basically subtly let them know these are just people. These are normal, flawed, annoying people, but they're not these evil monsters from your nightmare who are hiding under your bed like you think they are.
Yeah.
Oh, but before I forget, the thing about Falco and Gabby is they seem to possibly represent the two sort of contrasting but also complementary sides of Eren's psyche and of his also behavior as a person.
Yeah.
And maybe symbolically what we're going to see take place in this season is that either one side sort of wins over the other, either the more compassionate or the more violent and aggressive side. And maybe by watching what happens with Falco and Gabby, that's meant to give us a hint as to how the larger battle will go.
Yeah.
Or the other possible meaning is that maybe we'll finally see these two sides kind of achieve balance, come together and meld in a perfect way, and kind of find this point of balance, and especially towards the very end. And I could jokingly add, maybe Eren achieves alignment or something.
Yeah.
But maybe that's actually kind of the end game. We're finally going to either see one side win out or finally see them mesh and collaborate in sort of a perfect way. Or as perfect as it'll get for Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Alright guys, thanks for listening today, and I hope you had a great time. If you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new viewers and listeners, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. In this 11th installment of the interview, Wolf has a question or two he wants me to answer. And boy, he was not going for softballs. I'm getting the feeling he should be interviewing folks himself. Okay, so we've talked about what we're hoping for in the next few episodes. I haven't really. I would like to ideally see more combat with the Horror Hammer Titan. I'm hoping she manages to get a second win and manages to fight Eren a little longer there. I forgot to mention, you asked how many powers he has. I don't know exactly how this works, but in addition to the Founding and Titan powers, we do have that serum he drank the one time that finally gave him the hardening ability, which is why he can use it now, kind of like Anakin.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
So he's not like a full-blown armored Titan or anything, but he does have some of the hardening and crystallization abilities, kind of like Annie and Reiner. And now if he can get the Warhammer Titan, then he gets his additional powers, which should be absolutely sick to see him use. I really hope we get to see him use those a lot this season.
Yeah, that would be fire. But here's something I want to see, like your insight on. So you do remember like the first episode, right? Where we see Falco kind of like dazed. I don't know, maybe he got hit in his head or something on the battlefield.
Yeah, I remember that.
So when they were kind of like bring back his memory, he brought up people swinging in the sky like whoosh. And if I'm not mistaken, he's talking about the Survey Corps. How would he know about them?
That's a really interesting thing. Some people think that maybe he will eventually gain either that he might eventually actually like have to fight and defeat Eren and maybe gain his powers, like inherit Eren's Titan abilities. Especially because we've seen one thing we saw with Eren at the beginning of the first season. It opened up with him like having those dreams and visions of the future, right?
Yeah.
And this was all before his father ever injected him and gave him the powers. So it's like he was already somehow having visions of like Titan memories or Titan form memories before he even physically gained the powers. People think that this may be what Falco is experiencing here as well. And we've been told how not only all the active shifters, but all the Eldians as a whole are somewhat tied into the same, like this one central. It's kind of hard to describe, but like with the founding Titans' powers, it's sometimes called like the coordinate Titan. Apparently, there's some kind of level or realm in which all of the people of Eldian heritage are tied together, and that even their memories and minds, like this is how the mind wide's able to mind wipe not just shifters but all the Eldians if it has sufficient power.
Yeah.
And so if there's this collective memory like bank or base that they're tied into, Falco may be either affected by that, maybe he's tapping into memories by that somehow, and maybe it's also specific to maybe his being a future shifter in some ways. Maybe people are also wondering, because we've seen that people get like these future memories and everything. They're wondering how exactly that works, how it is, like to what degree is the timeline, I guess you could say, kind of affected in different ways, because you're not just operating in the present, you're also influenced by past memories and even future memories. And like, how does that, and then the future memories affect the present day time travel type stuff. Yeah. All that's like super confusing for me. And I know I'm not gonna say too much, but I know we're gonna get into that more this season, especially because it is the final season. This is when we finally get our answers. But we're thinking that maybe Falco is having like, or maybe he actually joins up with like you were saying before, that maybe the point of all this is to unite the world against Eren individually. So maybe we reach a point where the Survey Corps or the people on Paradis are kind of part of that collective war effort. And so maybe what Falco could either have memories of stuff from Eren's past fighting alongside the Survey Corps, or maybe he is having memories of the future and stuff that's going to take place with regards to the battle later on and the fighting that's going to be going later on. So it could be like either direction, or it could be some combo of all this. Maybe we're getting everything at once. Maybe we're getting past memories and future memories all mixed together.
Yeah, my thought process was like kind of similar to yours, but instead of him having Eren's powers, I was thinking more of like a Reiner, like some way or form Reiner lays down his life for Falco, and Falco gets his armor Titan, and that's how he would fend against Eren.
Yeah, that could be so cool to see. And we know that that's actually Reiner's goal. He doesn't want Gabby
Yeah.
to inherit the Reiner, the armored titan, and he was trying to motivate Falco and get him to try harder to win the power.
Yeah.
I was wondering why he would do that, and at first I was thinking it was mainly just about protecting Gabby and not wanting her to have a shortened life because of the curse of Ymir.
Yeah.
But then I realized maybe it's also because he realizes it's kind of like what he said about Eren. He's like, this is the last person I want to have this power. Maybe he sees the same thing with Gabby, where it's like, because she believes all of Marley's lies and because she's so aggressive and such a fighter,
Yeah.
he feels it would just cause more of a problem to let her inherit that power. Maybe he wants Falco to inherit it because he's more inclined towards peace and has like a better perspective, and maybe he thinks he'll actually be a better person to wield the power and maybe finally find a peaceful solution.
I definitely can see that.
Okay, so that brings me to I'm also looking forward to, like, in the next few episodes, finally getting to see more of Levi at work and seeing him go up against Zeke again, hopefully. Yeah. Especially because that's been long overdue. But that brings me to my next question, which is, are there any larger questions you really want answered, or things you want to see for, like, the rest of this final season we're getting?
I would probably say just all about how that, like, memory stuff works. If there's any way to bypass not being a royal for Eren to use all the abilities, and probably just a little more in depth of the Ackerman family or tribe, or what you want to call them.
Yeah, I'm definitely really looking forward to finding out about, like, more about how the powers work, about the Ackerman clan, what makes them, so special, and, like, what their links are to the larger storyline, like what their origins are. And also, I do expect, since this is the final season, I do expect we're gonna finally see Eren get to unlock the like the full extent of his Titan powers, and especially the founding Titan, because I don't feel like the series can end without getting to see our main character at their, like, max power level.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm really looking forward to potentially seeing. Alright guys, thanks for listening today, and I hope you had a great time. If you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new viewers and listeners, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. This is the final part of our main session from the interview. The remainder of the installments will be from a more free-flowing session we had after the main part of the interview was done.
Now, oh, sorry to cut you off, but here's the question.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the Tybers, they're royals, are they not, within the Eldian family?
No, I don't think they're parts of the royal family per se. I think the idea is that they're a family of nobles who were always they maintained the power of the Warhammer Titan specifically. It's been passed down through their family. But I don't think they have the royal blood like Historia does.
But wouldn't they have to, though, to really be able to activate the Warhammer's powers? Like, to use it how they use it?
Not as far as I know. It's the founding Titan's powers that require the royal blood. But when it comes to the other Titans, regular shifters who don't have a special bloodline still make full use of them. Like, as far as we know, neither Annie nor Reiner has any special bloodline, aside from being Eldian, which is the required bit.
Yeah.
And they still use the armored Titan and the female Titan and the colossal Titan and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think the Warhammer Titan, even though it has kind of unusual abilities, like advanced hardening abilities, I think that's just its like unique power. Just like, you know, each Titan has its own unique abilities.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's like tied to having a royal bloodline.
Dang, I was gonna think maybe that was the whole reason for Eren eating Willy. Because what if a Titan does ingest a royal? Do you think that would give them a certain type of control then, or no? You think it would have no effect?
I've really excuse me. That's actually something I've really been wondering about, like how you access the powers, because the way it's traditionally been passed down is that someone with royal blood has to then consume, you know, someone who already has the founding Titan power, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it can work the way you're describing, which is like having someone who doesn't have the royal blood consume someone who does have royal blood while the person without the royal blood is in Titan form. Like if he consumes Zeke or somebody, which is kind of what I'm hoping to see. I'm like, I can't stand Zeke. I have a serious bone or 3 or 500. I have like 500. However many bones he left behind for the Survey Corps.
Yeah.
I have like a field of skeletons to pick with him. So I would, and he made a game out of the whole thing. So he didn't just wipe them out. He had to be all smug and treat slaughtering them like a game. Okay, so I hate Zeke. And I know we get to see more of him this season and apparently like develop his character and everything, but I don't think I'll ever really like Zeke. I have a feeling. So I would love it if Eren could actually consume Zeke, and if that would be enough to give him the founding Titan powers. That would be massively beneficial. First of all, it would take out the Beast Titan, take him away from Marley.
Yeah.
Oh, and Eren would gain. That might look weird. I have no idea what it would look like.
I don't want that at all, actually, because
that I don't. Hopefully it wouldn't affect like his appearance. I do not need them botching up the attack Titan. That would be like horrifying to see. I mean, Zeke's Titan is already ugly enough.
Very ugly. I hate the way he looks. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for real. That's not exactly the calendar model of out of the Titans. But yeah, if he could do that, then A, it would take him away from Marley. B, we'd finally have some revenge against Zeke. I want Levi to be the one to like defeat him, kind of like we saw in season 3.
Yeah.
But then Eren would need to like finish him off by consuming him while he's still alive. But that would be very satisfying to see.
Very.
And then it actually could give Eren the abilities of the founding Titan. So if that would work, that would be magnificent. But like I said, I don't know if it even works that way. I don't know if having a non-royal consume a royal is enough to give them the powers or not, or if it can only work the other way around.
So when Eren touched the Titan that had royal blood, right?
The smiling Titan, yeah.
Yeah. Now, so whose ability was it that allowed him to control the Titans? Was it the foundings or the attack?
It was those powers are what the founding Titan is able to do.
Okay, so okay, because if I was wondering, like, is it possible that all the Titans have a special like Titan altering ability when you have royal blood or in contact with royal blood? Because doesn't the Beast Titan, he's able to turn people into Titans, right? Like he's able to transform them with his yell. He's able to do that. So I was just wondering, like, what else would the other Titans be able to do if they did have royal blood?
That's another really interesting question. Like, even if you don't have the founding Titan, if having royal blood will give you like extra benefits.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me think. I'm glad you brought up that moment of him touching it. because just the fact that he could use the powers just by being in contact with her. Now, I wonder if the fact that she was in Titan form makes a difference. I don't know if it would work the same way, but if simply touching someone, he didn't even touch like a blood or open wound or anything, and it didn't even make contact with his own blood, I don't think. I think he had already like healed by that point.
Yeah.
So it seems like just surface skin to skin contact is enough to at least partially start tapping into the powers. So it may not be all that necessary for him to do anything extreme to fully access the powers. Like, I was wondering why he was so freaked out about Historia and worried she would be sacrificed, because I'm like, if you can just touch someone. Oh, again, that happened while the smiling Titan was, transformed into a Titan.
Yeah.
I think I finally get why he was worried. He was worried that they were gonna think that's the only way to do it. Yeah. And I think someone mentioned that they had tried other... I'm gonna have to look this up, look back, see if I can find it. That they actually had tried other experiments to see if he could unlock more... I think this is before they knew about the control thing, but they were trying to see if he could unlock memories. But apparently that stuff didn't work out, so maybe that's why Eren... It seems like the ability can be kind of unpredictable, so maybe that's why Eren was concerned that they might decide to resort to more extreme stuff. But I'm wondering if it's even necessary to go that far in order for him to unlock those abilities.
So many questions, so many theories, man.
Yeah, I know. It's funny, even people who have read all or most of the manga and are like now near the end game, even people like that, I've noticed, still have like a ton of questions left. I mean, this series is literally keeping us guessing all the way to the freaking end. It's amazing. So let alone people like us who are either anime mostly or anime only.
Yeah.
It's like the more you see and the more you find out, the more questions you end up having, actually.
Honestly.
Hopefully we get satisfactory answers to like everything.
Yeah.
At this point. Alright, so... Okay, so now we're going to do... I think this is a good point to just move on to like a more freeform segment of the conversation.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna like pause I'm gonna stop the recording here and then start a new audio file, but this is like the section where it can just kind of shoot the breeze more about Attack on Titan, any questions you have for me, stuff about anime and content creation stuff. So if you're up for that, I can go ahead and start a new file.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay. Hello, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. In doing an interview, I definitely had specific questions and topics to cover, but another thing I wanted to make sure of was that I gave my guests a chance to share or discuss things they had on their minds that maybe I hadn't covered or wouldn't even think to ask. I felt like both things were necessary to do a thorough job, having specific questions and topics so I really make good use of their time, but also giving them leeway to go beyond that and share additional things. So hopefully you'll enjoy this section of the interview. Let's begin. Alright guys, so now we come to the freeform section of the podcast. So Wolf, what's on your mind? Is there anything you want to talk about with regards to the series as a whole, the season as a whole, this episode, other anime stuff, whatever you want to talk about?
Let's talk about content creation. Let's see. Where do you see yourself, let's say maybe in a year from now, with like your channel and stuff?
That's definitely something I'm a little concerned about already, because obviously right now my focus has been on covering, Attack on Titan, which is definitely my favorite thing that I've spoken of, and it gives me, material. It gives me something like I said, it's a really high quality series, and it gives me something like really worthwhile to discuss and talk about. And it's also something I'm super passionate about personally. This is honestly, this whole project, I mean, especially, I started the podcast before I started, coverage of this series, but right now with operating the podcast channel and covering this series, it's the happiest I've been in a good long while, especially coming over some, recent situations I had in my life with my health and with like social situations and stuff. So I'm already kind of wondering what's the next step going to be, after the season is finally over and after the manga is finished, after, when the time for covering it comes to an end. I think I'm probably going to spend some time like covering other anime series, because I feel like I am going to eventually find stuff that, like newer stuff that feels worth my time. I don't know if I can really cover. I think I'll probably also spend some time covering shows and series I've already watched or read, like the 2019 remake of Dororo, Rurouni Kenshin, maybe Yona of the Dawn, D. Gray Man, some other series and stuff. Other than that, I definitely want to spend some time covering other like writers and authors, especially because that's important for me as like an author myself. Like I've spent some time writing fiction in addition to the poetry, and it was that's been like one of the main things I've been doing like the past several years. So I do want to make sure to continue like covering and highlighting different like authors who put out good material, especially because there's so much like lousy material out there. There's like the mediocre stuff and then there's the awful stuff. So it's extra important for me to like highlight the authors who put out really good quality work and also, aren't creeps, because I've dealt with creeps. So I really want to highlight, the good people, the talented people, and people who make, really good stuff. That's definitely something I want to do. Yeah. Other than that, it's really hard to see, where. I also do comment some on social topics and stuff, so I'll still be doing that a little bit. I think I may also start recording some readings maybe of my poetry and other things, but I think the core of my work will probably be focusing on analyzing like a few different series maybe, or maybe just maybe I won't do each series as much as I am Attack on Titan, but maybe I'll set aside different episodes for different series where I delve into specific like topics or concepts from them. So I think that'll probably end up being the core of my work. But who knows? I make plans and then, the world basically, you make plans and then life just looks at you and chuckles and says, F your plan.
Yeah, it happens. It definitely happens. But,
so what about you? Like, what do you see?
See, that's a hard one for myself as well. I kind of want to like the whole main thing because I have two channels basically. I have a gaming channel and then I have my reaction channel.
Yeah.
So my gaming channel, I don't know. When it comes to gaming, I love playing games. I love it. The editing process for editing a gaming video, I'm kind of just like, I don't know. I don't like purposely playing a game to try to get clips or stuff like that. I like to just, enjoy myself and have fun. So I thought of like, what kind of channel can I make where I can really just enjoy myself and be me, honestly, and still, possibly pull like a following. And I realized that like, I love watching anime and people tell me like my reactions are kind of funny. So I thought, hey, why not, make a reaction channel? So hopefully within like a year or so, we can reach heights that we didn't even fathom with this anime reaction channel. Sorry.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it'll probably be something that a lot of people will want to enjoy. Like I'm already looking forward to. You mentioned that you're right before our interview began. You were actually working on your recording and then your editing for your reaction to this latest Attack on Titan episode. Like, I'm already really excited to look at that. I was actually planning. I hadn't realized that everything was going to be so close together. I had actually planned on watching that before I even started the interview, especially because I figured that would give me, like, hearing your thoughts on it beforehand would like give me things to kind of hone in on and talk about in the interview. But it worked out anyway because this has been incredible. You've been an amazing guest on here, and we still got to cover a whole lot. But yeah, the reactions, I can definitely see that being something that really draws in a lot of viewers. And also, I'm wondering, have you considered doing Let's Play videos? Because you mentioned not wanting to just like look for or edit for like clips or highlights.
Mm-hmm.
The Let's Plays would kind of give you a more relaxed format where you can just kind of talk and chat and be yourself and just move through the game naturally. Have you thought about doing that?
I actually did a couple of those on my channel. The only thing is though, the gaming community, they're not as loving as the anime community is. Like the anime, this is exactly why I love anime so much. Like, yeah, you have your certain like gatekeepers and stuff like that, but overall, the anime community, they're wholesome and they love everybody. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I know for a fact that I can get a lot more attention, a lot more love, and a lot more like support when I focus on anime more than focusing on gaming.
Get good, noob.
Exactly.
I'm totally messing with you, but that's kind of my impression. Now, that's really interesting to hear about because I'm not really in the gaming world. I'm just, I watch the gaming videos as just, a fan and a casual observer.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even label myself a gamer. I don't feel like I play video games enough to justify that. I'm a person who likes playing games and enjoys games and likes watching. I appreciate games, especially like the storytelling of I've really enjoyed watching the storytelling element of games be emphasized over the years. Like, games now are sometimes better than movies, and they're also longer, like even the cinematic clips and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in hearing, can you talk more about that, about your experiences as a content creator on both the anime and the gaming side? Because that's not something I'd heard about before. Like you mentioned, the difference in the communities. Especially because I see a lot of the toxic side of anime. Alright guys, thanks for listening today, and I hope you had a great time. If you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new viewers and listeners, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. I definitely wanted to follow up on that insight Wolf had about the different behavior you see in the anime community versus the gaming community, so this segment starts off with a continuation of that topic.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like just on any platform you go on to, like, yeah, I've noticed like people constantly like blow up or get shown a lot of appreciation or a lot of like controversy when they talk about anime. It's just something that a lot of people are very passionate about. Whereas when you come to like the gaming community, everybody's like a troll, no one really wants to show love because they're like, man, I can do that, man, I don't care about that, man, he's nothing, like, and it's all
smack talk.
Exactly, it's all fine and good and all, but it's like, to really grow, like I want to really grow my community to like I don't even know how to explain it. I just really want to like be different and make a difference. So in order to do that, I kind of have to like grow. I have to grow. Like, I just have to be big.
Yeah, I definitely see that. You build, building a community, enables you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do, individually. And that's really, the nature of really the world, and even us as human beings, that we need each other. We have to be able to collaborate and work with each other. So there's only so much an individual person can do.
Yeah.
So, trying to be like a hermit off in a cabin somewhere doesn't tend to be that effective.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get some writing done, but you still have to interact with people afterwards. So you gotta go talk to your publisher and try to find actual readers and everything. And I think part of the difference, I guess, it's probably kind of the nature of anime versus the gaming thing, which is when it comes to anime, you can be competitive, and people will be competitive and maybe try to brag or get an ego about, their knowledge or their expertise on a series, or I've watched, 50 different series and I've watched 100 different series. They can try to develop an ego about that. And of course, there's the whole, you're not a real fan because you haven't seen every single episode and all the OVAs and all the manga. But it's still, ultimately, you're still talking about someone else's content or their work, the original writer or the author. So it's there's only so much space for your ego to even exist.
Yeah.
Whereas with the game, it's more of a directly competitive thing where people participate and, people fight against each other. So I think there's naturally more of a tension and more of this thing about maybe being hesitant to praise each other or seem too impressed by someone else's skills. And also you kind of try to, even sometimes jokingly and sometimes seriously, you kind of talk smack and be like, you're all right, or he's all right, or he's trash, he can't do nothing, I can do better than that, I can do better than that in my sleep.
Yeah.
So it probably does sort of contributes to the different feel and attitude that you've experienced dealing with the two different communities. It's kind of funny hearing that because I'm someone who's a little bit nervous about dealing with dealing with some of the more difficult sides of anime and anime fandom. So it's good to kind of hear this different perspective where you're like, hey, it could be worse. There's other stuff you have to deal with when you create other types of content as well. And there are the upsides to what the anime community has to offer as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, basically, and don't get me wrong, I love games. I'm a gamer at heart. I love all games. Gaming is a true escape. Is like no other. Like you said, they're kind of better than movies because it really puts you inside the scenes that are happening. So it don't get me wrong when I say the anime community is kind of better, but it's just how do you say it's just brain fart. Oh gosh.
Maybe a bit more of a social or a relaxed social and kind of bonding vibe versus the more competitive one.
Yeah. Definitely.
Dang, I had something I was just about to ask you related to that. Darn it, I forgot.
Yeah, I just had the illest brain fart, and I'm very upset right now.
Oh, well, I just thought of it was what you mentioned about movies versus games. Mm-hmm. For me, what I was highlighting was really just the writing and storytelling quality, how it can be, plus because they don't have the same length restrictions, you can experience more of the story than you would have time for in a 90-minute movie or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's for the really good stuff, the Arkham series, for me, that's the Batman Arkham Asylum and stuff. I love that. And honestly, for me, that's been some of the best portrayals and some of the best versions we have of Batman and Batman's storyline and stuff. But also, you highlighted a different aspect of that, which is the fact that having a game kind of puts you, well, it's more, it's interactive. It kind of puts you in the story and you become more of a part of it, and you really do and that probably does make you feel even more invested and involved, and you have even higher emotional stakes because you've been part of the character's journey.
Yeah.
And even trying to achieve a goal, instead of just watching someone on screen do all the work, you've actually had to put in time and effort and pay attention and study in order to get past obstacles and overcome stuff. And in role-playing games, you've even made choices about how to talk to people, how to interact, and everything.
Yeah, just if you think about it in a sense of when you're watching a movie and say a character dies, you say, oh dang, he died. But when you're playing the game and you are that character, you automatically embody that character as yourself. And if you die in the game, man, I just died, man. Like you are him. You're that person now. It's very, very creative and very amazing how things work with the escapism of gaming.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. And that kind of makes me think of how some games, I won't specify it just to avoid spoilers for anyone, but some games have really depressing, upsetting endings, and I can't stand that. I mean, I'm already not that keen. I can deal with tragedy in the story, just like Attack on Titan. We're full of tragedy and sad stuff, but I do hope we have at least a semi-happy or satisfying ending, because it's especially because we've been through such a ringer. But it's even worse when it's a game, and imagine spending hours and hours working on a game and maybe having to start over several times and figuring out puzzles and overcoming all the obstacles, and then after all that effort, they screw you over in the end with some lousy
yeah.
Either you still lose in the end, or just whatever they come up with, the story is just stupid or just trash.
Yeah.
It's you go through all of that and then they screw you over in the ending. So that's especially why, even worse than a bad movie ending, it kind of feels like bad game endings are probably even worse. I mean, it's annoying for me if I watch someone play a game and it has a bad ending, but I'm I can't imagine even spending that many hours and then getting screwed over after all that.
Yeah, that'd be insane.
Alright guys, thanks for listening today, and I hope you had a great time. If you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe and turn your notifications on so you can get updates. And if you want to help make the podcast more visible for new viewers and listeners, you can do that by leaving a like, share, comment, or review on whichever platform you use to listen. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, social media, etc. And please don't forget to check out Wolf's Twitch and YouTube channels as well. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty. Hello, and welcome to A Dash of Salt with AJ. I'm your host, Ahsoka Jackson, author, poet, podcaster, and freelance proofreader. Well, it's time for the final installment of the interview. Is there anything else on your mind?
No, I don't think so.
Are there any other games or TV shows that you're looking at that you haven't started yet but are maybe planning on getting into? I'm not holding you to this, but anything that currently piqued your interest.
Games as of such, I would have to say I'm waiting for Outriders. It's really something I'm looking forward to. I think that I'm gonna really enjoy that game when it comes out. It's kind of, how do you say, it's like a mixture of Destiny. I don't know if you ever heard of the game, and they say Gears of War, I believe.
Yeah, I've heard of Destiny. One of my siblings actually has it, although I haven't really seen much in terms of the gameplay. Gears of War is something I've been meaning to look at, just watch videos for the longest time, because I've seen some. They have, I think, at least 4 or 5 editions of it out now, and some of the story looks interesting. So I've been meaning to check out Gears of War. Outriders, I think I actually saw the advertisement for it at one of the game award shows or conferences. Yeah. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it looks really interesting. It even looked like maybe something I might want to play eventually myself. So yeah, that could be really good. If it's as good as it looks, that sounds like it should be really fun for you, and also fun for the viewers to watch.
Definitely.
What about TV shows for your reaction channel?
TV shows. Well, we're actually about to. I have in the works. I don't know if you heard of the anime ReZero.
Oh yeah, we watched. I'm on the second season right now. It's been a really good show. I really like the concept of it, and really good.
Yeah, we just started recording the second season part 2, so that's gonna be on the channel. I'm kind of debating on whether or not I want to add on Dr. Stone, because I love Dr. Stone. That was a really dope concept. It was very different from my average anime watchings. Like I'm usually into all like the combat, the fighting, the shonen, regular stuff. But to
Yeah, I'm the
see,
same way.
yeah, to
It was
see
actually
that's
like,
different.
I'm sorry I interrupted.
You're fine.
No, but I was saying it was actually I'm the same way. I mainly focus on like sort of the action anime, and it was my best friend who got me into Doctor Stone, and she's like really into. She loves like stuff related to science and everything, and so that kind of topics there definitely suited her, and I've really enjoyed it myself. It's really interesting. It's also I also really enjoy the humor.
Yeah.
It's funny how I even see certain parallels to stuff in that storyline, Attack on Titan. I can't really get specific because that goes more to spoiler territory, really for both. But it was really kind of fun to see some of the coincidences. I'm like, are you kidding me? So it's a nice little sort of Easter egg element for me, the way I see little nods in there. I don't know if that's deliberate or not, but just it's kind of funny how I see similarities between it and Attack on Titan in subtle ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing. I need to, continue with RE0 myself, so I'm definitely looking forward, though, to seeing your reactions to those episodes. Once I make sure that I'm like caught up to the same place in the storyline.
Yeah. That's the one thing about reactions. You got to make sure you're caught up because you don't want to get spoiled, and especially if they're not showing the whole entire episode.
Yeah, for real. Like sometimes I'll lose track of like what day something's supposed to be on, or I won't realize that a new season has started. Like I still need to finish the second episode, but I had forgotten about the Promised Neverland.
Yeah.
The exact date for it, because I loved that show. I loved the first season. Really enjoyed it. And so when I found out that someone I follow who does reactions, they started a stream and we're about to do reactions to Promised Neverland. I'm like, oh shoot, I haven't even watched that yet. I didn't even know there was new episodes. So yeah, you gotta try to stay caught up with it. And then with Attack on Titan, it's kind of hard to always watch it like right after it premieres. You usually have to wait a few hours, so I have to like hurry up and try to rush and like get it watched and then write down some of my own thoughts and hope I can get all that finished before my like favorite reactors start.
Yeah.
So Sunday is always extra crazy. Plus, I don't know what it is, but it seems like that day has been there's kind of a running joke now for me and my friends that the day has become slightly cursed for us because every time we try to watch it, it's like we have tech issues and family stuff going on. We actually just she injured her hands that same day.
Oh.
Hopefully she'll be okay, but it looks kind of bad, but it's just crazy. Like I had a terrible day up until the end. Like after we watched it together and like were able to spend time talking, that made the day a lot better. Yeah. And then I watched your stream right after, so that was a great way to end off the day. I definitely felt a lot better by the end of it. But yeah, the day started off pretty crazy. It's like there's something in the universe like jealous of Attack on Titan. Just like people kind of flooded the internet when the very first episode of season 4 premiered and all the sites got shut down and everything. That's just from traffic, obviously, but it's kind of funny how there's this like running thing of obstacles showing up on Sunday. But I'm like, I have a really stubborn streak, which can be both good and bad.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh no, you're not beating me, especially not when it comes to Attack on Titan. Nothing gets between me and Attack on Titan. So yeah. Alright, well, I think that brings us to about the end of the interview. Are there any last thoughts you want to share about the episode or about, your channel or anything else? I mean, content creation. I'll let you like formally sign off in a second, but I mean like just topics, final thoughts.
No, I don't think so. I think we hit everything that needed to be hit. It was truly a pleasure,
Well, thank you. I had an amazing time. I'm so glad you agreed to do this. It was great hearing like your different theories and your thoughts, and you noticed you came up with theories I had never heard before, and you noticed different things about the characters that I sort of forgotten or missed. It was great have you on. I know you were kind of concerned about what it'd be like coming on here, but I figured you would be a great guest, and I was right.
Thank you.
Allow me to gloat and preen myself first.
Weak.
No, but it's my pleasure and my honor to have had you on here.
Likewise.
All right, so why don't you go ahead and give us a plug for your channel, and we can end there. I'll probably record like a formal outro later.
Yeah. All right, guys. This is Wolf Maniac. If you guys are looking for a stream to go crazy in, you know, you can catch me on twitch.tv/wolfmaniac_. No spaces, okay? And the reaction channel is Wolf Reacts. I hope you guys enjoyed this session with me and AJ. And, you know, God bless, guys. I love you all. Mwah, mwah.
All right, and there we go. I really hope you guys all enjoyed this interview with Wolf Maniac, and I look forward to hearing your own thoughts on this episode of Attack on Titan, plus the other topics we covered. Regarding what I said in my introductory note over a dozen podcast installments ago, I may do like a written post to share extra thoughts that weren't covered in the interview. Written would probably be best, especially with the backlog I already have when it comes to subtitling YouTube videos. In any case, thank you for taking the time to hang out with us. Feel free to share, subscribe, you know the drill. Until next time, be blessed and stay salty.